Bro, the rules are officially out the window. Acting director Tsukishiro is sitting there in the blistering heat, giving first-year Nanase the ultimate, terrifying green light. Expel Kiyotaka Ayanokoji by any means necessary. He is actively preparing an explosive finish for the deserted island special test, effectively turning what should just be a standard school exam into an all-out blood-in-the-water survival hunt. I mean, you really have to understand the psychology happening right here. Tsukishiro is a man who usually operates with this incredibly cold, calculated precision, right? But right now, the guy's desperate. The administration itself is weaponizing the environment, the rules, and the students to forcefully drag Ayanokoji back to the White Room. He is raising the stakes to literal life or death for our boy's entire school career. Our boy is officially cooked if he makes a single mistake. But wait, before we get to this absolute climax and why the adults are suddenly sweating so much, we have to look at the incredibly wild board state that just got set up in the background by the students themselves.
And this brings us to a massive, massive curiosity question. This is the kind of move that completely shatters the established meta of the entire school. Why in the world is Ryuen, literally the most ruthless, cutthroat player on campus, dropping 5 million private points to completely bail out Katsuragi from Class A? What insane four-dimensional chess move is happening right under our noses here? And what does Ryuen actually gain from handing an absolute fortune to a guy he openly despises? To understand why this happened, and to truly grasp how the board is set for this survival horror island, we need to go back. We have to look at the quiet, desperate moves happening in the shadows before the storm actually hits.
Section 1. The Vice President's Trap. Okay, so the very first quiet chess move before the island exam doesn't even come from Ryuen or Arasu. It comes from the Student Council Vice President himself, Kiriyama. He actually calls Ayanokoji out for a completely secret meeting. Now, on the surface, you might think this just feels like standard student council maneuvering, right? Maybe some light political pressure. But here's the thing, it's not. This is a trap built out of pure, unadulterated desperation. Just listen to the raw, unfiltered emotional truth behind Kiriyama's words. He says, "I won't be going down with the incompetents and losers of Class B." Cold. Just absolutely cold. You really have to deeply consider what this moment costs his pride. He is the vice president. He is supposed to be this untouchable figure of authority and leadership. Yet here he is, literally hiding in the shadows like a cornered rat, admitting total defeat on a class level. His entire class has fallen completely under Student Council President Naguma's control, and they lost that fight months ago. Kiriyama is terrified, so he has shifted from trying to save his classmates to purely saving his own skin, planning a final, desperate, one-on-one strike against Nagumo on the island just to secure his personal ticket to Class A.
And this dynamic completely exposes the brutal reality of forced versus chosen power. Nagumo views the entire school as his personal monarchy. He is collecting pawns, entirely expecting absolute loyalty and obedience to lock down the top 3 spots on the island for himself. He doesn't see students, he sees resources to be used and discarded. Kiriyama, on the other hand, realizes with terrifying clarity that he is just one of those pawns, and he knows he's about to be sacrificed. He is essentially begging Ayanokoji to keep the younger Horikita completely out of his way. Because Ayanokoji pulled strings to get Horikita onto the student council, Kiriyama is violently paranoid that she might leak his little rebellion to Nagumo just to earn some favor. Kiriyama isn't acting from a place of strategic dominance at all. He's acting from a place of pure terror, frantically trying to dig a single escape tunnel before the island exam crushes him completely.
Moving right along to Section 2. Enter the wild card Ryuen.
Just as Kiriyama is sweating through his grand, desperate plea to Ayanokoji, the tension in the room shifts violently. We get this sudden, completely uninvited interruption. Third-year student Ryuen from Class 3B literally crashes the secret meeting out of nowhere. Instantly, the whole power dynamic in the room just flips upside down. Kiriyama completely freezes up, trying to dismiss her as a failure of a classmate, but the psychological reality is so much more intimidating. Ryuen is an absolute menace to the school's ecosystem. She boasts an A+ in both physical ability and academics. She is a total powerhouse who could easily dominate the school if she actually wanted to. But she is a complete loner and an absolute narcissist. She outright admits she has zero interest in the desperate struggle to reach Class A. While Kiriyama is basically dying of stress trying to escape Class B, Ryuen treats the brutal, cutthroat hierarchy of the school like it's a casual, all-inclusive resort. She just burns through her private points, living a completely comfortable life, perfectly confident that her sheer, overwhelming skills will effortlessly carry her in the real world after graduation. She is openly mocking the very system Kiriyama is entirely enslaved by.
Okay, but here's a hidden detail you absolutely cannot miss. Pay very close attention to what Ryuen says to Ayanokoji right here. She looks at him and says, "Call it instinct. Something inside me tells me you're extraordinary." No way. Do you realize how insane this actually is? Think about it. Every other major player in the history of this school, Arisu, Ryuen, even Manabu, they all needed concrete data, test scores, or some intense physical demonstration to figure out Ayanokoji was hiding his true abilities. Kiryuin literally just walks up, catches his vibe, and sniffs out his true nature on pure, raw instinct. It is a terrifying level of perception that proves exactly why her stats are totally maxed out. She doesn't care about taking first place on the island for the glory of her class. She is targeting a top spot simply for the pocket change, and much more importantly, to force Ayanokoji's hand and test his true potential for her own entertainment. And when Nagumo himself actually arrives on the scene to recruit her, it creates this absolute massive clash of philosophies. Nagumo demands total submission. He expects everyone to just bow down and join his massive sweeping alliance without question. But Kiryuin is the absolute loner. She is completely untouchable because she desires absolutely nothing that Nagumo can offer her. She completely rejects his invitation, and then she delivers a brutally cold roast, telling him straight to his face that despite his perfectly crafted image, he completely lacks any real charm. She even hits him with the ultimate psychological warning. She tells him if he keeps obsessing over the younger underclassmen, he's going to trip over his own two legs. It is a massive, humiliating blow to Nagumo's massive ego right in front of an audience, setting up an inevitable, explosive collision course for when they hit the deserted island. Section 3. Ryuen's 5 million betrayal. If you thought the third years were moving crazy, wait until you see what the second years are cooking in the shadows. We transition to a completely wild secret meeting at Kiyaki Mall, involving Ryuen, Ayanokoji, and Katsuragi from Class A. Now, Katsuragi is extremely defensive here, and honestly, who can blame the guy? He thinks he's being set up for another brutal trap. You really have to dive into Katsuragi's emotional state in this moment. He's been drowning in deep-seated shame for so long, trapped in a terrible contract with Ryuen's class since the very first island exam, just bleeding class points every single month. It is his greatest failure as a leader. But Ryuen isn't there to fight. He is there to execute one of the most insane buyouts in the history of the entire school. Ryuen actually went to Sakayanagi, the smug leader of Class A, and bought Katsuragi out of her contract for 5 million upfront points. 5 million. Let that sink in. He is dropping an absolute fortune to bail out his worst enemy. Why? Because Ryuen wants Katsuragi to defect and join his class. The sheer indignity Katsuragi must feel being saved by the exact guy who ruined him is staggering, but Ryuen doesn't care about his feelings at all. Ryuen is actively sinking Sakayanagi's ship, stealing her absolute best defensive player purely out of spite, just to destroy her class from the inside.
But how exactly does Ayanokoji fit into this massive mafia-style deal? Well, Ryuen demands that Ayanokoji facilitate a card trade for the upcoming exam to officially seal the alliance. This right here is a hidden masterclass in tactical negotiation, and Ayanokoji is basically robbing the robbers. Let's break it down. Step 1, Ryuen's class offers the trial card. Step 2, Ayanokoji's class trades the bandwagon card to legitimize the swap. Step 3, Ayanokoji secretly and very quietly secures the half card as the real prize for himself. Why does this matter so much? Because the half card outright negates expulsion penalties. Low-key, Ayanokoji is using Ryuen's massive, loud 5 million point conspiracy to quietly secure an absolute ironclad safety net for Kei Karuizawa. If Kei fails on the harsh island terrain, Ayanokoji now holds the exact VIP protection item needed to prevent her expulsion. Everyone else is playing checkers, and he is playing an entirely different game of survival.
And honestly, this reveals something deeply unsettling about Ayanokoji's psychology. While this unbelievably high stakes, 5 million point betrayal and tactical card trading is going down, Katsuragi turns to Ayanokoji. He's completely stressed out, sweating, and asks what the hell he's doing. Ayanokoji just deadpan replies that he was curious how his coffee would taste if he diluted it 3 or 4 times. Bro was literally treating his iced coffee like a middle school science experiment, while heavy mafia deals and class defections were happening right across the table from him. It completely highlights his absolute sociopathic detachment from the situation. He fundamentally lacks normal human anxiety. He quietly secures the safety net for his people, ensures his critical assets are fully protected, and the rest of the school's frantic scrambling is literally just background noise to his afternoon drink. Section 4. The Lone Wolf Rivalry. As the island exam approaches, the wave pacing of the story shifts back to a quiet, extremely tense buildup. The strict deadline to form groups is rapidly closing, and everyone is frantically scrambling to find reliable partners to avoid the harsh expulsion penalties of getting sick or failing alone out in the wilderness. But 2 girls are stubbornly standing their absolute ground, Suzune Horikita and Mio Ibuki.
Ishizaki actually tries to pair Ibuki up with Horikita just so they have some kind of safety net, but it instantly falls apart because of their fundamentally different types of isolation. Horikita represents strategic solo play. She is actively, consciously choosing this lonely path to test her own strength, to prove to herself that she can survive without Ayanokoji holding her hand anymore. Ibuki, on the other hand, represents forced isolation. As Horikita coldly points out, piercing right through Ibuki's tough exterior, Ibuki is alone because literally nobody else wants to work with her. She is universally rejected by her peers. It hits a massive, painfully raw psychological nerve. But ironically, this deeply personal psychological damage sparks a bitter, fierce rivalry between them. They both stubbornly agree to enter the dangerous island entirely solo, setting up a brutal, exhausting test of physical and mental endurance to see who truly is the stronger lone wolf.
Section 5. Koenji's Impossible Promise. Now, shift your attention to the end-of-term ceremony. The rules are finalized, the stakes are massive, and we get absolute cinema from the biggest wildcard in Class D, Koenji. Up until this exact moment, Koenji has completely refused to cooperate with his class at all, just coasting by on his immense family wealth and natural talent, casually watching everyone else struggle. But Horikita finally corners him, demanding he participate to earn the class some desperately needed points. And for the very first time, Koenji actually wakes up. He agrees to a deal, he looks at her and says, "I'll give you a showing like none you've ever seen." The sheer, unfiltered arrogance is just staggering. He isn't just promising to participate, he is literally promising to casually break the school's power scaling. He is fully rejecting the idea of forming a three-person group to maximize points, instead betting absolutely everything on his own, overwhelming, god-complex level of physical and mental superiority to crush every single group in the school entirely by himself. Let's really break down the actual stakes of this impossible wager, because it's massive. If Koenji takes first place, solo, against huge, coordinated upperclassmen teams, Horikita has to promise him complete, unquestioned freedom to do whatever he wants until graduation. No more nagging, no more relying on him, just total immunity from class responsibilities. But if his massive ego writes a check his body can't cash and he fails to take first place, the punishment is absolute. He must officially become a cooperative, obedient pawn for the class in all future special exams. This fundamentally changes the story moving forward. For the first time ever, Koenji has genuine consequences on the line. He is finally unleashing his true, terrifying potential, and the whole island is about to feel the massive impact of a fully motivated Koenji.
Section 6. The target on Ayanokoji. Now, we finally hit the climax of the setup, the single moment that completely changes the trajectory of the story. Everything we just talked about, Kiriyama's terrified rebellion, Kiryu's careless intrigue, Ryuen's spiteful buyout, Koenji's massive wager, all of it is literally just students playing a fabricated game. But for Ayanokoji, this island is no longer a school exam. It is a lethal, inescapable trap. We cut back to the blistering heat with acting director Tsukishiro. Here is the massive hidden detail driving this entire threat. Tsukishiro's fraud allegations back at the governing board are starting to clear up. That means his time posing as acting director is extremely short. He doesn't have months to play slow, psychological games with Ayanokoji anymore. The clock is rapidly ticking down to 0. He is entirely out of time, which means the normal, protected rules of the school are completely thrown out the window. This is his final, desperate, explosive attempt to forcefully break Ayanokoji before he loses his authority for good.
And this brings us right back to the most chilling, unresolved thread of the entire setup. Tsukishiro looks at first-year Nanase and tells her she has full permission to act exactly as she pleases in the unmonitored zones of the island, whatever means necessary so long as it gets Ayanokoji expelled. And Nanase, with a completely unsettling, dead look in her eyes, agrees to be the trigger. But what is she actually thinking in this moment? What does she fear? As she walks away, she cryptically states, "I want to know what you really are." She isn't just following Tsukishiro's orders blindly as some loyal soldier. She has her own deeply personal, terrifying obsession with uncovering Ayanokoji's true nature. She suspects there is something fundamentally unnatural about him, and she is willing to cross literally any moral line on that deserted island to drag his darkest secrets into the light. She isn't just competing against him, she is actively hunting him down. So the trap is fully set, and the jaws are totally ready to snap shut. Nagamo is mobilizing the entire school into a massive army. Ryuen is hunting Sakayanagi out of pure spite. Koenji is fully unleashed and ready to break the scaling. Kiryuin is watching it all from the shadows. And the administration itself has officially authorized a Black Ops expulsion mission against our boy. He has zero safety net left for himself, having quietly traded it all away just to protect Ki.
Going into this brutal deserted island, the emotional weight, the psychological warfare, and the sheer, raw physical danger have never been higher. Will Ayanokoji survive the island, or is he finally cooked? Drop your theories below, subscribe to Zero Anime, and I'll see you in the next one.